Okay. Well, hello, everyone who is joining me either live or on the replay. Um, Welcome to our power cooking class. I'm excited that you are here, and I'm excited that you're watching. If you're watching on the Zoom, obviously you have the chat window where you can post things in. I think I can see the chat. And if you are watching on another platform or on the replay, make sure that you comment or add anything that you want, and I will see if I can answer it as we go. Okay, so tonight we are talking about power cooking with beef. Now we have talked about some elements of cooking with beef throughout the day. And so let's start off with just the basics. If you are not a person who gets it from the farmer, then you have to buy it from the grocery store. So a good price for beef currently in this season is about $7 to $8 a kilogram. It's kind of in where you're finding it. That's really where we're going to find the best price. And that's usually on lean or extra lean. Extra lean is a little bit more expensive, but that's usually where you'll find lean is in that $7 to $8 a kilogram. That's the best price. Now, obviously, if you get a whole cow, that's a totally different beast, and that's fun too. But the thing about power cooking with beef and with chicken, which we're going to talk about too, not tonight, is that the thing that I don't love about cooking a big batch of meat, and maybe you can agree or disagree in the comments, but I found in the past when I have cooked a big batch of ground beef and say made tacos, then we're like eating tacos till we're done eating tacos, or chili or lasagna. Have you ever made too much spaghetti sauce and you're like 6 weeks down the road and you're like, this is still too much spaghetti sauce in the freezer? So what I love about this concept of power cooking with beef is we're actually just going to make kind of like a base. And then that base is going to turn into a whole bunch of different things. So if you are part of the workshop and got my email, you will have gotten a PDF document that you can look at and refer to. But if not, you can send me a comment and I will send you this PDF document that contains not only the base, but 5 different recipes that you can turn this base into, which is one of the things that I love about it. So we're going to start off. I've just started to preheat the pan. So I am using our Executive non-stick skillet. So I love this non-stick skillet because it's exactly what it's. It's non-stick. So it's got a titanium-based coating on it. Nothing really sticks to it. It's the easiest pan I own to clean. It's Highlandy. It's just so great. It's oven safe, it's dishwasher safe. It's got a lifetime guarantee. It'll be the last pan you ever need to buy because even the coating doesn't scratch. You can use metal utensils with it, which I know is the thing that blows most people's minds, because if Mr. Nobody lives with you, he lives here, it's okay. He shares residence, is that sometimes a fork goes into a pan, and in these pans, it's not going to scratch. And even if it does get a little bit of a scratch on it, that scratch is going to only be in the surface, not in the rest of the pan. So I think, it's one of the things I've been talking a lot about lately is that sometimes when we think we're bad cooks, it's not that we're a bad cook. It's that we don't have the right cookware that enables us to do the job well. So, it's going to mix up. The recipe calls for 2 small onions. So I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to the pan, get that heating up. And then this is really about how do you want to hide your onions. So as I'm going along here, if you have a comment, you can unmute if you are on the Zoom, or you can post in the chat. I can see the chat. And so, all right. Oh, these are going to be nice and small. These are going to hide sugar. Now, I always like to put these in first because now the recipe is going to tell you to put them all in together. I don't want you to do that. And the reason is because you actually want your onion and your garlic to saute up a little bit first. You want it to cook a little bit. That's going to really increase your flavor. It's going to increase, you're going to get some caramelization on the onions, which again is a flavor thing. Put some garlic in. Now, garlic is something we measure with our heart, but the recipe tells us to put in 3 cloves. So here's the thing with the recipe base. The reason I would say to stick to the 3 cloves is because we can always add more down the road when we're turning this into something else. But something like tacos doesn't usually have a lot of garlic in it. A little bit. I mean, I don't know. Do you put garlic in your tacos? So one of the recipes that goes with this is obviously tacos. So you can always add more garlic later, but in a base recipe, it's probably better to err on the side of caution. So basically, we're going to take 2 onions, 3 cloves of garlic, and we're going to saute that up for a couple of minutes till the onions start to get a little bit opaque and really quite flavorful. Now, the thing with sauteing, or the thing with making any sort of meat, is we don't want to play with it. We want to play with it as little as possible. So I'm just going to take this all of the way. Oh, before I go, see all these little onion bits? If you ever make your own chicken stock or vegetable stock, you got to save all of this, because there's actually a lot of flavor in that peel. And it just adds flavor to your broth, and you don't have to throw it out. It's a great way to use up some of your what would otherwise be food waste, especially if you don't compost. All right. We'll put that over there. Do I need anything? No. Okay. So those are going to cook up a little bit. Okay. So what I love about this pan is that, have I told you already, nothing sticks to it? These onions are just, oh, they're so fragrant, which is awesome. Oh, the reason I love dicing them in this manual food processor is you'll notice I'm not crying, because all of the fumes from those onions have stayed inside the processor, which I love. Okay, so let's talk about the beef itself. Now, when you have ground beef, especially if it came out of the freezer, one of the things you want to do is you want to pat it dry. And the reason is that when we put the beef into the skillet, we actually want it, the sugars that are in it, to sort of caramelize and brown, as opposed to steam or boil. So you want to kind of make sure your beef is as dry as it can be before you put it into the skillet. So especially if it's fresh, I would still pat it dry a little bit, but if it's frozen, chances are it's got a little bit of extra moisture in it. So you want to pat that dry. All right. So those onions are getting nice and sort of see them in there. You see they're nice and sauteed. Okay. Now I'm going to add my ground beef. So this is where this is really the win. We've got about 3 pounds of ground beef here. So now you could do more, you could do less, but generally 3 pounds for this recipe set that I've given you for this workshop, 3 pounds is really the base. So I'm going to take my mix and chop. I'm going to spread that beef around so that it's kind of laid flat. And then I'm going to leave it alone. So this is often my biggest flaw when it comes to cooking meat. I don't know if anyone else is like me. I play with it too much. When we play with it, what we're doing is we're releasing some more extra of that liquid, and that's when we're really going to see the steaming process and not allowing it to caramelize. The bottom of this pan is hot. You can hear it sizzling. And so we actually want that meat to brown. So we have to leave it be for a few minutes, probably about 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll turn it a little bit and brown the other side. So it's super interesting. This is just something I've been learning lately, and it totally makes a difference, especially because we're going to put this meat in the freezer. So we want it to have as much flavor as it can going into the freezer. And that way, when we turn it into another dish down the road, it's already got so much of that good caramelization in it that we're going to have a better product in the end. Okay, so let's talk about the power cooking concept itself. So this is the document that I emailed out to the workshop people. If you're watching this online and want the document later, let me know. But what I love about this is that it gives you 5 different recipes that you can make. So let me read you the recipes. Easy beef stroganoff. Now this is one that we really love to do. Zesty tacos, which who doesn't love tacos? Everybody loves tacos. Chili, sloppy joes, and hoagies. Now hoagies, in my opinion, are just kind of an elevated sloppy joe, but sloppy joes are kind of a downscale chili, right? Like at the end of the day, we are still cooking ground beef. But what I like about these is that it just gives you a little bit of variety. Now, maybe while this is cooking, if you want to either comment in the comments or on the Zoom, what else you could do with already cooked ground beef. There's lots of different recipes, and I'm going to share some more in the workshop tomorrow. But these are the 5. What I love about this 5 already set is that it gives you a grocery list on the last page. So let's talk about this concept in the context of meal planning. So over the years, I've had a lot of people, and some people have done freezer meal workshops with me, and those are where we just put kind of the raw ground beef in a bag with the ingredients, and then you cook it fresh. We've also talked about meal planning, which is where you put ground beef on this, you put chili or you put tacos on Tuesday on the meal plan schedule, and you got to start them from scratch. What I love about this concept is that we're doing the hard work all at one time. So if I wanted to make, say, stroganoff for supper tonight, then I could make that and then put the meat from the 2 other recipes in the freezer. And in my mind, I could say, okay, we're going to have chili on Thursday and we're going to have tacos on Sunday. Then if you think about it, I've kind of done 2 things that we talk a lot about. I've meal planned, I've meal prepped, and I've made a freezer meal. Now, I haven't completely made a freezer meal because what I love about this concept is that my freezer meal isn't cooked fully. So I love fresh food. Around here, we are kind of fresh food people, as opposed to like pre-cooked or leftovers. So you'll see, even as I'm here, I don't have my mix and chop out yet. I'm just kind of turning this ground beef over, and maybe I can bring it over and show you. You can see that it's kind of getting a little bit dark and caramelized. Oops. On the bottom side. All right, let me just get it all turned over and then I'll see if I can remember my train of thought. Somebody might have to remind me. Okay. The thing about cooking this way is it takes less supervision. So, oh yeah, exactly. Shepherd's pie, stroganoff, lasagna, soup, all great things that you can do with it. But the reality is that you don't have to do any of those fresh in the moment, right? And you also don't have to do a big batch. I think for me, when I've made spaghetti sauce in the past or chili, right? In fact, we still have chili in the freezer that we've been eating that was like a couple weeks ago when Ian made a big batch, right? And then you kind of get tired of it. So what I love about this concept is that you can be flexible and you can be fresh, which I think is such a nice concept, at least for us to be able to make a fresh meal and not just make it leftovers. Chelsea or Lindsay, I wonder if you have thoughts about how your family likes to eat. Do you like to make a fresh meal every night, or are you happy to pull something out of the freezer? I think this is a really interesting, if you've never tried this. I know the last time I did this, I did have just the 3 packs of meat in the freezer. And so it was so fun just to be able to pull one out and be like, okay, what's for supper tonight? I have the hardest part done. The stroganoff recipe calls for fresh mushrooms, but honestly, you can do it with a can. And so that's one that you could always have all the ingredients on hand for. But really, all of these have canned diced tomatoes, chili beans. They all have ingredients that for the most part you're going to have in your house. And so when you go to pull out that meat out of the freezer, you don't have to think to yourself, oh, I didn't really want chili tonight, but that's what's in the freezer. You're like, okay, I've got a bag of cooked hamburger. What can I make? And I think that's the thing that makes me so passionate and excited about this. I mean, beef is an easier one, often with chicken. That's one that has a little bit more variety to it. All right, so this is coming along really nicely. I am going to get the mix and chop in here now. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point, Lindsay. So Lindsay just said if you have the cooked hamburger in, your kids can then make a meal because the hard work is done. Yeah, because honestly, if I had the hamburger in the freezer, anybody can add. So this recipe calls for you to add salsa and tomato paste and taco seasoning. So that's easy to do if you've got those ingredients. All right, let me get this nice and finished. My fridge is all of a sudden having a temper tantrum. All right. Okay, we're gonna let that cook just a little bit longer now that it's getting nice crumbled up. Okay, so if you think about ground beef, one of the reasons we love the mix and chop for any of these kind of recipes is because ground beef, the reason you get such fine crumbled ground beef in the restaurants is because they're using a high fat. Now, the difference between your extra lean ground beef and your regular ground beef is the percentage of fat that's in it. So regular ground beef is 30% fat, whereas extra lean ground beef is 10. So depending on the amount of fat that you don't mind having in your diet, then you can choose which kind you buy. But the fat, the volume of fat that's in it is going to be what gives you that fine crumble, which is why we love our mix and chop, right? Because the leaner the ground beef, or if you are going to do turkey, or if you've got any wild meat that are very lean, then those need a good crumble in them. And also crumbling it helps you to make sure that they're cooked well. All right. This is almost there. So the other thing I love about this skillet too is that it heats really evenly. So one of the things about skillets is that often if you've got just a skillet that doesn't have any sort of heat conduction in it, it's often just heating right where the element is. Whereas this one is heating in the whole surface area of it. That's why it's cooking so quickly and efficiently, is because this side up here is as hot as that center because of the aluminum core in the pan. So that's one of my favorite things about it. It's bubbling just as nicely out here on the little edge as it is right in the center. And that's what makes this cooking so efficient. So you can use this pan from everything from ground meat to pancakes to, you can even do a cake in it. I have done cakes in these because they're oven safe. You can even bake a cake in it. If you need a nice 12-inch round cake, I have done that quite a few times in the past. So if a new skillet is one of the things that is on your wish list, then I have some room next week for some parties and you can get this guy for $100 because the host special this month is 60% off the skillets. So that is a really great option if you want to do that. Okay, so let's talk about some of these other recipes. Italian beef hoagies. Now these are, so they call for peppers, red wine, vinegar, onion soup mix, Italian seasoning, and mozzarella cheese. So they're like, imagine like a meatball sub, just with ground beef instead of with an actual meatball. And then there's sloppy joes and chili. So one of the things that, again, the recipe for the base is here in the document, and then how to freeze it. So one of the things I like, and I wanted to show you these because this is how I have been freezing them, is we have these silicone reusable bags. So the last time I did this, I just froze it in one of these because then I can, this is oven safe. It's actually air fryer safe. It's microwave safe. So if I needed to reheat that meat up in a quick jiffy, then these are really good for that. I can also use these in my sous vide, which I do all the time. So they are really super handy. And then when I'm done with them, I just turn them inside out. And put them on the top rack of my dishwasher. And that gets them really nice and clean. Okay, so that is done. So this ground beef is all cooked up in this 20 minutes that we've been talking. Not even 20 minutes. Oh yeah. Let's bring this over here and we can have a little bit better look at it. And this was fairly lean. This came from the farm, so it was fairly lean. It doesn't have a lot of that extra grease in it, but that's where this guy comes in really handy. So, and this is the other thing about these, is that I can put straight from the pan into them. So if I am doing this in a meal prep type situation, I just did this in 20 minutes, right? So I can put hot food right into these silicone reusable bags, which I obviously can't do into a Ziploc or into a freezer bag. So I'm just going to divide this beef into 3 portions. You can see that the little bit extra is draining out there. It'll have a little bit as it freezes, but it won't be a big deal. And then I've got, if I divide it into 3, I've got approximately 1 pound of ground beef in each of these Ziploc bags. And my ground beef is ready to turn into any of those recipes that we've been talking about. So that is power cooking with beef in a very quick nutshell. I am going to turn off the live stream and thank you for joining me, and I'll stop the recording and then we can maybe chat for another minute or 2.